MicroStrategy, of course, buying more Bitcoin, and also the ETFs continue their slurry of getting into Bitcoin in a big way. So we're going to break it down for you guys, give you some insights, and hopefully you'll like it. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Before we get started, I want to, of course, thank our sponsor, and that is iTrust Capital. If you're getting into crypto IRAs, this is one of the ways that you can do that, and it's very simple. You can go sign up at iTrust Capital, do your own market management, and everything from gold, silver, Bitcoin, Ethereum, all coins, all of that managed right there inside your iTrust account, and low fees. So check it out. Make sure and use our link down below. It gives you a $100 funding reward if you decide to get started. All right, a couple of points happened today, and one, of course, was the issue of MicroStrategy grabbing another 37 million in Bitcoin. This brings the holdings to 190,000 Bitcoins overall. I mean, that's a lot, guys. That's a lot. Says it's going to acquire the 850 Bitcoin in January, bringing its total to 190, worth 8.1 bill. And then overall, MicroStrategy posted a net income of 89 million compared to a loss of 249 million in 2022. They're starting to move a little bit here. 2024 is the year of the birth of the Bitcoin as an institutional grade asset. In fact, it's the first new asset class of the modern era. I think that everybody kind of understands that. So the next 15 years will be regulated institutional high growth period for Bitcoin. Very different from the last 15 years is what Saylor is talking about. I think he sees, the writing on the wall in the sense that we are going to see more and more of that. And I'll show you a stat here in a second that'll be a little bit surprising. But if you look at the growth here, this is kind of interesting. MicroStrategy currently outperforming since its adoption of Bitcoin strategy overall, outperforming the S&P, Bitcoin itself, NASDAQ, pretty much everybody, including all the big stocks, including Meta even right now. So you can't really argue with success out there. Now, one thing that has been driving this, many people have been looking to this, has been this somewhat centralization of Bitcoin. And if you look at it, kind of incredible, the inflows into Bitcoin with the launch of 11 ETFs, amount of less than 20,000 Bitcoin. Meanwhile, right now, Bitcoin ETFs control over 3%. Think about that in comparison to gold ETFs, which are 0.2. So big difference here. I think the ETFs clearly see the writing on the wall in terms of an opportunity here, and they're definitely going in all the way. So it's going to be one to watch for sure as more and more gets into this. Matt Hogan hits on Fidelity, which is one of the top ETFs out there right now. Fidelity has a 1 to 3% Bitcoin allocation in their all-in-one asset allocation funds in Canada using spot ETFs. And the conservative version is below, and it kind of shows you that cryptocurrencies is lined up above global equities and even money markets and cash. So they're all in. I think Fidelity, we've talked about quite a bit here on the show, digital assets, Fidelity digital assets have been one that have moved quickly. They were one of the first that were trading both Bitcoin and Ethereum. And now that we have an ETF here in the US, I think this is kind of the fight between BlackRock and Fidelity to kind of control that market. Other tweets out there right now, Satoshi's kind of getting a little bit more on the data on inflow of Bitcoin ETFs. February 6th was 333.7 million, marking the 8th consecutive day of net inflow, which is good. Grayscale had a single day of outflows of 72 million. This was one of their lowest. So Grayscale may be turning the corner here and getting in a position where they can actually compete. I'm still waiting to see if they come off that 1.5% rate in terms of management fees. And I think that's the really the question. I don't understand why they would hold that. I mean, I get it. Sure, fees are a revenue center, but still being able to control some of that market is significant. So it's not all great news. Other things that would be and could be considered right here is how Bitcoin is going to fare when Genesis dumps their 1.4 billion in GBTC to pay its creditors. That still could be a looming factor here for Bitcoin. And with the fact that we've seen Bitcoin trade somewhat sideways, this is one to watch for sure. So that's one to keep an eye on. Now, I want to go to a clip real quick. This is actually a video. It was a long video from Gary Gensler talking about market makers and dealers and this new style of regulation by enforcement that I think they're underway now on. Let's cut to that clip so you guys can get an update of what they're doing.
What do dealers and traders have to do with Top Gun? Top Gun, the biggest blockbuster of 1986. Well, 1986 had another blockbuster. That was when Congress amended the securities law to give the Securities and Exchange Commission oversight of an important part of the U.S. markets, the U.S. Treasury markets. Well, here we are, 40 years later, and even one Top Gun sequel later, and not all market participants acting as dealers or government securities dealers in the Treasury markets have registered with us. That leaves potential gaps and risks in the system. Now, that just won't fly. Further, market participants now are transacting faster than ever before, as fast as jets. Some entities known as principal trading firms, aka high-frequency trading firms, are participating significantly in the Treasury market, acting just like dealers in these markets, yet still have not registered with the Commission. We don't want this to become a highway to the danger zone. All right. You see, Congress did not intend for registration requirements to apply to some dealers and not to others. That's why, among other changes, the final rules further define what it means to engage in de facto market making. Those pilots from Top Gun, Maverick and Iceman, they can go by whatever call sign or name they'd like, but they were still pilots. And dealers can go by whatever name they'd like, but they're still dealers. If they want to participate in the capital markets, they'll have to register with ground control, the SEC.
All right, so this spun out a lot of issues within the market, and one came from Peter Schiff. He's a Bitcoin skeptic. I'm sure you guys know him, but he slams the new SEC crypto rules. A couple of points that were made in this article. Under the newly introduced rules, individuals trading crypto asset securities or government securities with assets exceeding 50 mil would have to become members of a self-regulatory organization, SRO. So basically, you got to become a dealer. You got to register that way, is what Gensler was talking about. Schiff is not having it. He basically says, how can the SEC, a government agency on its own, change the definition of a security dealer so that it can regulate something that is not actually a security dealer without any law having to have been passed or authorized such regulation? You get the point. We're nations of laws, not bureaucrats. And I think that's the problem that everybody understands, is that the overreach that we're seeing from the SEC continues, and now we're going to be dealing with some new alignment here. And if you want to read the whole response letter to this, here was Hester Peirce, who basically kind of outlined it as well, saying there's a lot of regulations that are already in place to kind of cover this, but it's kind of a situation, I think, when you look at just the regulatory position overall, the SEC doing what the SEC does, which is continue their overreach and push. But hey, that's not necessarily going to be the end of it. I think what we're still dealing with is a lot more people now interested in this market, especially if you think about what the ETFs have done to really kind of bring this sector to the forefront. Here's Paul Graywall. More numbers speak for themselves. 85 mil, 300,000 advocates, and 18 U.S. senators now since its launch of Stand with Crypto. And I think we talked about that quite a bit on the show, trying to get, I think, a lot of lawmakers at least in frame of understanding what's really happening in this market. So I think we are now getting enough attention out there. The question is whether or not we're going to get any regulatory guidance this year. I think that's the bigger scenario. And if you compare to what this impacts, because this is really all about, restructuring the financial system. Here's a good example. Cost to send 100K right now USD on major payment rails. If you're a business, you're doing these kind of things. Solana, almost nothing. Bitcoin Lightning, around a cent. Of course, you have Smart Chain in there from Binance. And then Ethereum, about $5 to $20. Visa, MasterCard, $100 to $300, and a bank wire could be up to $500. So clearly, it's the old school system versus the new school system, a new financial structure that's really in place that changes the game for sure. Crypto market could face near-term correction, as analysts say that a rate cut delay is still not priced in. That's the thing that I'm looking at right now. March, I feel, is still off the table for a rate cut, meaning higher for longer. And I think this means a lot of sideways. Now, there are some things happening in other tokens and other projects out there that are starting to get some movement. Obviously, the ENS launched this week with Ethereum, and what we will see around that in kind of normalizing Web 2 to Web 3. is going to be interesting to keep an eye on. And in fact, if we just take a look quickly at Ethereum, of course, taking a little bit of a run right now here on the chart, hitting over 2,400 right now as we recorded this video today. So a little bit of activity on Ethereum. One thing that we've been watching with our market sentiment has been somewhat in line with an upward trend in Ethereum over this past week. So we're going to continue to keep a close eye on that one. If you guys are not in the Diamond Circle, make sure and get in. It's one of the best places to get additional content. We also do some additional deep dive research over there that is available for our members there on the Substack. So just click the link down below and you can get in on that. If you guys want to hit me up on X, it's @PaulBaron. Catch you next time right here on TechPath.